Welcome back to your next lesson on your rehearsal dinner. In this lesson, we'll go over what the rehearsal dinner is for, when it is held, who hosts it, where it's held, who to invite, how to invite them, when to send your invitations, the food, the vibe, the gift exchange, toasts and speeches, as well as last-minute reminders. So, if you're ready, let's jump in. The rehearsal dinner is a way to get the bridal party familiarized and comfortable with the order of events for the wedding ceremony, and it's an opportunity for both families to spend time together prior to the wedding and to thank your family and friends for being a part of your special day. The ultimate goal of the rehearsal and rehearsal dinner is to relieve your wedding party of any pre-wedding tensions and make sure that everyone is comfortable about the wedding day, knowing what exactly is expected from them and the role that they play. The rehearsal dinner is traditionally held the night before the wedding, so if you were getting married on Saturday, you would hold the rehearsal and dinner on Friday evening, normally around dinner time. Now, keep in mind, you do not have to have a rehearsal meal, and skipping that part altogether is perfectly acceptable, as sometimes there's just not enough time to fit it in at all. The rehearsal can also be held 2 nights prior to the wedding, if you have everyone in town that needs to be a part of the rehearsal, or it could be held the morning of the wedding if need be. And if this is the case, a nice breakfast or brunch could be arranged to make sure everyone eats and is full of energy for the day. Who hosts the rehearsal dinner? These days, anything goes, but if you choose to stick to tradition, because the parents of the bride traditionally paid for the wedding, the groom's parents would organize and pay for the cost of the rehearsal dinner. But again, it could be both sets of parents or even the bride and groom. So now let's talk about where to host your rehearsal dinner. You'll want to have your rehearsal dinner at the venue you're having your ceremony in, so choose a place that's not too far from there and easy enough for your out-of-town guests to get to, like a local restaurant. Most couples should choose to have their rehearsal dinner at their favorite restaurant, and maybe it's where they first had their first date or where he proposed. And this is often the most popular choice because the staff there can handle every aspect of the evening, from the drinks to the decor to the food and music. Some couples choose to host a sit-down dinner at a hotel ballroom or fine dining restaurant. I've seen everything from outdoor barbecues at a family member's home to hot dogs and beer at a ballpark or even the zoo, clam bakes on the beach, or a dinner cruise. I've also seen them take place at amusement parks, microbreweries, bowling alleys, beer gardens, and picnics in the park. Ultimately, the setting of the rehearsal dinner depends on the budget and location of the ceremony. Who to invite to the rehearsal dinner? Your rehearsal dinner should include your immediate family, meaning your parents and step-parents, siblings and step-siblings, and your grandparents. It should also include your wedding party members and their spouses or significant others. And if you're having any children as flower girls or ring bearers, those children as well as their parents. It's also a nice gesture to invite your officiant and their spouse. Now, you could also invite your out-of-town guests if you have the budget for it, and if not, you could always host cocktails and hors d'oeuvres as opposed to a full meal. Another option would be to invite your out-of-town guests and any other very important persons to an informal welcome drop-in or cocktail and dessert party following the rehearsal dinner. How to invite your guests. When sending your rehearsal and dinner invites, there are basically 3 ways you could go about it depending on the vibe of the evening. The first way is by formal invitation, and that's if you're having a fancier affair, or if you have many out-of-town people coming, or if you just plain out feel like it. The second way would be to send an email or evite. If you plan on having a more casual or laid-back kind of rehearsal, this would be a good option for you. And lastly, you could always choose to pick up the phone and call each person to personally invite them. Whichever method you choose, just make sure you make it clear to the guests where the rehearsal will be taking place, what time, and where the rehearsal dinner, brunch, lunch, or whatever the case may be, will be held. When to invite your guests to the rehearsal dinner. Now, if you're foregoing the phone call option and choosing to send out an electronic invitation, or you plan on physically mailing out an invitation, you're going to want to get these invites out shortly after you send your wedding invitations so that everyone in the bridal party can make their plans in advance and know when and where they will need to be. Now let's talk about the food for your rehearsal. Since the rehearsal dinner is more often than not much more casual and laid back than the actual wedding, the food and atmosphere often reflect that as well. You could keep it as casual as a picnic or pizza party, a backyard barbecue or clam bake, or you could even have a theme night like a luau. You could also choose to use a caterer to provide you with trays of your favorite cultural food like Mexican, Italian, Greek, or Indian. The choice is up to you, but it should definitely reflect the vibe of the atmosphere you're going for. Speaking of, let's go over the vibe and atmosphere of the rehearsal dinner. Now, the wedding rehearsal and the wedding rehearsal dinner tend to be more of a casual event. More and more couples are choosing to keep the night low-key and relaxing. Remember, the rehearsal should not upstage the wedding. You just want your guests to be able to relax and mingle before the big day. And it's your chance to catch up with all of your loved ones and meet more of your fiancé's family and friends. Also, feel free to incorporate a theme and some decor should you choose. And remember, it doesn't necessarily have to be a dinner. Again, you could always choose a brunch or lunch if you need to run through the rehearsal in the morning, or a cocktail or dessert party instead if it has to be later in the evening run through. Now let's go over the rehearsal dinner gift exchange. The rehearsal dinner is the time that most bride and grooms hand out their bridal party gifts, especially if the gift is something that they would like for them to wear during the wedding. No matter if you choose this time to do it or not, you should make sure you take a moment to thank your bridal party for their support. Parent gifts or very important person gifts can also be presented at this time. And some bride and grooms also use this time to present each other with their own wedding gifts, should you choose to do that. Toasts and speeches. So, when do the toasts happen at the rehearsal dinner? Generally, once dessert ends, the toasts begin. Who gives them? The host of the party, typically the groom's father, goes first, then perhaps the bride's father and mother would follow. The groom generally follows and toasts his soon-to-be wife, the guests, and the hosts. If you and the groom are hosting the dinner yourselves, you could go first, and then your parents, family, and friends could say a few words. Now let's talk about some last-minute reminders. The rehearsal dinner is a good time to remind your wedding party about all of the details about your wedding day. Make sure they know exactly where they're getting ready, the venue's address, when they're expected to arrive, what they are responsible to bring with them to the wedding, where they will be getting ready, and if you've arranged transportation for them, the location and pickup times. Now, if you look over in the right-hand corner under Downloads, I've provided you with individualized sheets you can fill out for each wedding party member to make it easier for them to have all the important details on them and ready to go. You could also email or text the information for them to have on their mobile devices. Now let's go over some important tips to remember about your rehearsal. First thing, you want to remember the goal of that rehearsal, and that's to make sure that everyone in the wedding party knows what to do and when to do it. Keep it simple. You could choose to run through the rehearsal and then have a small intimate dinner or cocktails with just your bridal party and parents, or have a brunch instead of a dinner. The rehearsal is really only for those involved in the ceremony. It's up to you and your budget if you choose to invite others to get together after you've gone through your ceremony's rehearsal. And If you're strapped for cash, you could always have a potluck and invite everyone to bring a dish to save money on your catering. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I'll see you in the next one.